I should have done my own run-ins. I always do for my big drops, but I was just not really sweating it. It didn't seem that big, and I thought it was good to go. And I went probably 25, 30 feet past the landing, landed flat,
Oh,
and thought my leg snapped in half. It felt like my leg was pointing towards the bike when I landed. And when I landed,
oh,
I just started saying, "Oh no." And then came to a stop, looked down. My leg was still straight, went to put weight on it and just kind of collapsed.
welcome, mountain bikers. Thanks for tuning in to Vital MTB's The Inside Line podcast. Our guest today is Tyler McCaul. We catch up with him at home in southern Utah as he prepares for Red Bull Rampage, which is coming up quickly. TMAC shares details of his near career-ending injury, the challenging recovery process, and how it's changed his outlook on the capabilities of the human body. We talk all things freeride, go into his chops as a contest commentator, and we dabble in some good old times too. Thanks, TMAC, for being our guest today. The Inside Line is brought to you by JensenUSA.com. Use coupon code INSIDELINE, all one word, at checkout and receive 10% off qualifying items. Maxxis Tires hooks us up on the trail and for the show. Speed, grip, and durability are what make Maxxis mountain bike tires the best. Cruz Bicycles has pledged over $1 million to trail building projects and advocacy groups over 3 years. Their Paydirt Fund is helping get new trails built all over the world. Hit up santacruzbicycles.com/paydirt. You can see how your trail project can apply. Enjoy the show. I never got the legal paperwork you said you were going to send over about giving you the questions. And what did you call that thing?
Oh, my PR agent.
Yeah, but there was some piece of paperwork, like if you didn't like it, I have to delete stuff and...
Oh, the non-cancellation clause.
Yeah, that.
Yeah,
Are you
you
cool
gotta
if we
watch
don't
out
have
these days.
Sweet. Dude, what's up? What'd you eat?
I got some River Rock, which is kind of the stock go-to tourist trap coffee shop down the road here. I've just eaten there one too many times, but it actually sounded good today. Got a little
Cool.
sandwich and a smoothie and ready to go.
Dude, nice. How was the sesh?
It was good. We had a non-windy morning. It's a change of the seasons here, so it gets pretty turbulent when temps are dropping. But we had a non-windy session this morning. It's super good. It's actually been pretty cold in the mornings for me because I live in the middle of the desert now, and was riding with Braga Vestovic yesterday, and we were all like whining about how cold it was, and he's just sitting there laughing, and I was like, oh yeah, you're probably pretty warm right now.
Yeah, and it's dry too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rad. Dude, there's so many ways I want to start this, like so many things I just want to fire at you right away. But first of all, I want to thank you and your family, especially back in the day and still to this day. Like, you guys are a huge reason I even have a career in this whole mountain bike thing, and I'm forever grateful. So, we'll get into some of those memories later, but yeah,
Awesome.
you guys helped me cut my teeth way back in the day, and stoked that, can still talk to you now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was thinking I've probably known you for about 20 years now.
I know, dude. Isn't that gnarly? That sucks. How it's way
It
too
does.
long.
Yeah. I remember you come into the house and we would have Simpsons trivia battles.
Whoa, really? I don't
Yeah.
remember that. I
I was
remember
a
coming to the house,
diehard
but
Simpsons fan and you knew more than I did. So we'd always like quiz each other.
that's awesome. Sweet. All right. Well, I'll try and think of some as we go along. But
Cool.
all right, straight into it, dude. Is a 100-foot drop possible on a mountain bike? We're going for it right now.
For sure.
Is it, you think?
Yeah. I think with the right setup, absolutely. It's just got to be, I nerd out pretty hard on like ratios, gap to drop ratios and angles of takeoffs in comparison to landings. And I had some big drop goals before I exploded my ankle. I hope I can get back to that point, but I think we haven't gone as big as you could with the right setup, because we've gone pretty big in Virgin, and that's usually during a Rampage event where we're given parameters to be within, and we still find pretty big drops there. But there's some other locations out in Utah that I've been scoping and want to spend more time in that you get like the vertical cliff face instead of like the ledged out stuff we have in Virgin, which always makes them look even bigger. And building big landings out here it's so much work because there's so many stair step ledges and you spend a week on one landing. But I think the right location, right dirt, right angles, it just takes the right drop, the right wind, everything. But I think you could for sure.
Huh. Okay. So like when build the landings, like you're saying, just getting them long enough and steep enough out like at the Rampage venue, like that's the issue.
Yeah. And I think the important thing for me, what I found is trying to find the angle of the takeoff for a drop, almost matching the angle of the landing instead of a flat takeoff, because then you go out and kind of up and then you just plummet straight down. But I'm giving away all my secrets for stuff I wanted to do. But no, I want to see somebody do it. And I think people are going to push that, especially Jackson Riddle. He's awesome and wants to do big stuff. And I'd love to see it happen. I'm not sure if I'll get to that point. I'd like to. But anyways, I picture like a constant slope and just dig the middle out of it, basically. So it feels like you never leave the ground.
Yeah.
And I say for sure 100-foot drop. I've never stood on 100-foot cliff with a perfect landing and known what it looks like. I'm sure it would be absolutely terrifying. And there would be ways you could work up to it, like build case pads and stuff. Whether you would count that or not is debatable, but I think you could eventually. Okay. Bikes are pretty darn good these days.
Dude, no way. That's gnarly. I agree with you. Just in theory, yeah. Actual getting it done is a different thing. But how big have you gone? What's the biggest one you've done as far as like, vert?
I don't know. I try not to measure them. I just look at them for what they are. And it kind of irks me when people measure tip to tip and call it a drop. There is a way to do it. If you measure tip to tip, you use the angle finder on your phone, and then it's like the Pythagorean theorem or something. And you plug in those two coordinates and it'll give you the drop versus distance and give you the actual dimensions.
Like proper vert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the triple dipper one at the last Rampage venue they measured it tip to tip. I never did the angle of it, but it was, I think, 69 feet tip to tip. That number is easy to remember, but we never figured out what it was down versus out. That one was kind of like a 50-50 ratio. So it was probably somewhere in there, similar out to down, which feels more like a plumb drop when it's a 50-50 ratio, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Dude, there's so many things I want to talk about. All right.
Let's fire away.
Well, since Rampage is the topic of the day, like you're already out at the venue digging, like let's talk about this year's Rampage, just kind of from the ground up.
Yep.
But on the way into that, just a quick backstory of when did you move out there? And was that a decision to basically put your whole career into Rampage?
No, not necessarily. There's a lot of deciding factors. I grew up in Aptos, California at an amazing time. As you know, you'd always come visit, and we had just like the sickest crew ever. Super grateful to have what we had and the people I met and the friends I made and the places we had to ride. But that town's just not the same anymore. And in a sense, we kind of all got run out of there. It's just, the housing market went crazy and all of the dirt lots we had dirt jumps in are now apartment complexes and Starbucks. And it just didn't feel like my career and the way of life I like to live. I like to be able to go out and just be in the woods or in the desert and just have the freedom to build and ride. And you're kind of like a criminal there. You're always running from cops, like hopping, no trespassing signs and fences, and kind of just got run out of there. And every time I've come to Utah, I felt like I kind of belonged here. And had the urge to try to move. And then you go back home to Santa Cruz and you realize that's like a very hard place to be. You got all your friends and family there. And I kept saying when some of our riding spots would get torn down, that was the final straw. And then I ran out of straws. All our places pretty much got demolished. And then then it was just trying to convince the wife to move out. And my now wife, we got married a year ago out here. And she made the move with me. She's born and raised Aptos, California too. She grew up actually right up the street from the post office jumps in Aptos.
No way.
And she hadn't traveled much. So it was a really, really big move for her, big trust thing to move out here to the desert. And it took a year, but she loves it now. We've been here for We moved here April of 2019. So I'm happy we can say we moved here pre-pandemic, because a lot of people fled here from LA and stuff after, and there's quite the stigma on Californians in general.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been great. She loves it now. She's in real estate and being real successful with that. And we're just liking the quality of life out here. Time's a little bit slower. You're never stuck in traffic. Things are more affordable, lots of freedom for now. It's changing quick. All these darn people from California keep moving here and trying to change it. But I love the way it is, and you can kind of just do whatever you want. It's kind of the Wild West.
Yeah. Are you in like Virgin, St. George? Where are you? What city? Or
I'm
what
in
town?
Tokerville. It's
okay.
It's like 10, 12 minutes from Virgin. Really wanted to live in Virgin, just there weren't many houses that were popping up for sale there. So we're just slightly detached from Tokerville. It's 30 minutes to St. George if we need to go do a Costco run or Best Buy, but we're in a pretty rural area. I think our population is less than 1,000 people. We got a little post office that's open a few hours a day. Everybody's really nice, and it's just kind of reminds me of how Aptos used to be when I grew up there.
Yeah. Huh. Dude, that's sick. Did you get some space, like some elbow room out there?
No, I have a half. Oh, well, sorry, I have a half an acre.
Okay.
And that's funny because everybody back home, when I tell them I'm moving to Utah, they're like, "Oh, cool, you getting some land?" And I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Why?" I just say, "Because Utah is the land. You know, we have all this BLM public lands, and I got my little half acre that does me good, and then I can go out in the thousands of acres that are public lands out here."
Dude, how do you spend your days? Like, are you just going out scoping and building all the time? Like, what do you do?
Well, I moved here in April, and then it was a ton of building IKEA, getting the house all set up, all that fun stuff. And then, and my friends were telling me, like, you should come ride now because you're running out of time before summer. And I'd never been here for summer before. But I just wanted to check all the house stuff off so that when I'm out riding, I didn't have to think about it. Finished all the IKEA, and then it was summer, which is pretty brutal here. You're up at 5. It's kind of like a surfing program. You know, you wake up early before the wind comes, but here it's before the wind and the heat. And sometimes you're done by 8 a.m. and then come home, make coffee, eat some lunch, do emails, wait for the evening. And sometimes you're out there at 9:30 and it's still 100 degrees. It's pretty brutal. It's really fun, but it's kind of an uphill battle just because it's so hot. But then it happens really quick. The change of the seasons, a little bit of wind, but this morning it was 48 degrees, which a couple of weeks ago, the low was probably 78 or something. Mm-hmm. And so from here on out is the perfect season to ride. And I didn't get to ride much because it was summer, and then we had Rampage 2019 and then filmed a bit, and then I got hurt and it put me on the couch for a year and a half. And then had surgery in last November, started kind of getting back on the bike just in time for this summer. Mm-hmm. And now the weather's getting good, and here we are. So I'm just kind of trying to make up for lost time and get comfy on the bike again.
Yeah, sweet. Talk about the injury a little bit and the recovery and all that.
Yeah, it was a super long process. I could talk a lot about it, but just in short, I went too fast on a big step down out here known as the Bender Sender at the original Rampage site. And I had a feeling that living out here, I would eventually become kind of desensitized to the size of things just because things are more normalized when you're standing on them and riding them all the time. And I'd never ridden that before. I was riding with Jackson Riddle. He had hit it the day before. He said he didn't take any breaks and didn't hit any brakes. And everybody takes different speed. You know, it depends on big stuff. Like the difference between squashing a takeoff and giving a little pop could be, 20 feet of distance, give or take. And so I should have done my own run-ins. I always do for my big drops, but I was just not really sweating it. It didn't seem that big, and I thought it was good to go. And I went probably 25, 30 feet past the landing, landed flat, and thought my leg snapped in half. It felt like my leg was pointing towards the bike when I landed. And when I landed, I just started saying, "Oh no." And then came to a stop, looked down, my leg was still straight, went to put weight on it and just kind of collapsed. And then after that was many months of misdiagnosis, wondering, waiting, pandemic hit. So basically all of COVID, I was on the couch, which was a bummer because, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to ride. And I love traveling and going to events, but the only bright side of COVID is people got to spend more time at home, and I was just stuck on the couch the whole time. But they were telling me it wasn't broken and it was a badly bruised talus, which is the ankle bone that most of your movement comes from. And I've broken a lot of bones. I know what broken bones feel like, and I kept telling them it was broken. We did multiple MRIs. They didn't see a fracture. Almost 10 months went by. After probably 7 months, I could walk on a cane, super slow moving, had some crazy coloration of my foot. I called it alien foot. Didn't look right. Try to show it to the doctors and they would say, oh, it just needs more time. And then I demanded a CT scan, which shows better bone stuff. And they found a fracture of the talus that it was actually an impaction fracture. So the talus at the subtalar joint impacted up into itself. It wasn't a clean fracture, so that's why it didn't show up.
Okay.
So the cartilage, everything, it's all packed up in there. That's why it was so painful. So we had to do surgery. They had to do microfractures, essentially like refracture it to try to create more blood flow because it's not much blood flow to that area. They found a torn peroneus brevis tendon, and just the whole subtalar joint was wrecked. Like all the cartilage from just sitting in there crunched and trying to do PT and trying to walk on it just because
And
I thought
it's
that's
stuff
what it
you
was.
shouldn't have done.
Yeah. And, they're saying it's not broken. So I'm trying to use it. But it just wasn't working. So did surgery in November. That was a few months till I could put weight on it. And then super extensive PT. I tried 4 different PT places and then really got lucky. Found a guy named Darren Marchant at this place in St. George who specializes in chronic pain and nervous system disorders. And he was able to diagnose why I was having what I called alien foot. He kind of clued into it right away. And that ended up being the root of most of the problems more than the structural stuff is this thing called CRPS. It's a nerve disorder. It's kind of like an autoimmune disease. It only happens in your hands and feet, triggered by severe trauma, and your body kind of attacks the limb that needs help, thinking it's helping it. So he did all these nerve tests, and he didn't clue me into it until a couple months in when we started making some progress. And he would do things like have a paperclip with 2 ends, poke me with it, not looking, and I would have to determine between 1 point, 2 points. And I was way off. Didn't have really any sensation down there. And then he clued me into it and said, don't freak out about it. It's a nervous system thing. Like your thoughts can kind of carry pain levels and all that, which I've always thought was kind of woo-woo my whole life. So I learned a lot. So I went home and Googled what it was, read a bunch of bad stuff. It's nicknamed the suicide disease because it's something that never really goes away. It's often misdiagnosed and doctors just get you hooked on gnarly opioid pain pills, which luckily I stay away from those and just kind of dealt with the pain. But for months, it felt like somebody with super big hands was just squeezing my ankle as hard as they possibly could, nonstop.
No way.
You feel that for a couple of days, but it was just constant for months. And I'm super lucky. I never started taking pain pills for it and just wanted to figure it out. But yeah, when I went home and Googled it and read all that stuff about it, my foot just freaked out. And that's when I started realizing that your thoughts can actually control stuff like that.
Wow.
My foot got super huge, looked like it had chicken pox, and then went in a couple of days later, showed him
like
the pictures.
The skin broke out?
Like visible purple foot with white dots everywhere, like just super weird stuff. Not what you want your foot to look like. It looked like it was dead. So then he told me, I was worried that was going to happen, but it's all good. We'll get through it. And I told him about all the stuff I read, and he's just like the most positive guy ever and said he had never heard any of that. Doesn't matter. We're going to work through it. And he then devoted so much time to helping me get back. He is the CEO of this PT place. He doesn't practice much anymore. He has about, I think, 7 facilities across Utah and Nevada. But he had been to Rampage with his kid a few times. And so he just really wanted to help me get back. And he was charging my insurance 1 hour twice a week, but he would have me come in 3 times a week, 4 hours per session. And he just beat the shit out of me. but I needed it just from being on the couch for so long and doing nerve retraining stuff and all that. And I don't think I would have gotten back from it if it weren't from him, honestly. It was a super long process. He became a really good friend. He's one of the most selfless people I've ever met. Just a good dude. And I ended up giving his son a downhill bike just because he helped me out so much. Super cool family. And I think that's what helped me get through it. Foot's still not the same. All the doctors want to fuse it, but I'm trying to maintain the range of motion I have. I have pain almost every step I take, but I'd rather have that and have ankle mobility. And I'm just hoping over time it'll slowly get better.
Crazy. And you're able to ride again. Like right now you're riding.
Yeah, riding actually feels good. It doesn't hurt anymore. For a long time it did. I didn't touch my downhill bike for almost a year and a half. And it hurt at first, and my left leg and right leg were just so weak that any little drop, I couldn't really take it. But I'm back on it now. Walking is a challenge. Walking uphill is fine because it's the subtalar joint that does the side to side movement. So when I'm on my toes, that's the up and down motion. It feels good. And then I ride down. But when I'm digging and I'm walking side hill and stuff like that, it'll light up pretty good. But it's functional. It's still attached, and just happy because I wasn't sure if I'd really ever be able to put my bike on my back and hike up a hill again.
Yeah, dude. That's gnarly. I had no idea it was that heavy.
Yeah, I didn't say much about it because it's a hard position to be in as an athlete. You don't want pity. You don't want to, I don't know. You just like at a certain point, I just didn't want to talk about it. And it was like embarrassing when people would check up on me and say, how you doing? And I'm still on the couch. Just didn't have much to say for it, but now I'm at a point where I can ride, and I'm just happy to be riding.
Dude, so glad you met that guy and found him, and he worked on it so hard with you.
Yeah, for sure. And he crushed me, but I needed it. And it was I learned a lot through the process. That's for sure.
Yeah. Like prior to that, did you like train for what you did, or did you just go out and ride and, do your thing?
Mostly did my thing. I had a good friend of mine back home in Santa Cruz, Joey Wolf, has a gym in downtown Santa Cruz called Paradigm Sport. And I would hit that like a few months leading up to Rampage, just to try to get in the best shape I could. But it was on the other side of Santa Cruz, so it's a bit of a commute with all the traffic they have. So I just couldn't be that dedicated to it. But this is like, in a sense, it was kind of a wake-up call that I'm in my 30s now. I got to take better care of myself. And we have a new house here. We bought a new build, and we have a downstairs like walkout basement. There's kind of just like a big carpeted kind of second living room area. And one day I decided to just take a box cutter to it and turn it into a home gym. And the wife came downstairs and was like, what the heck are you doing? But I know I needed a place for when I wasn't at PT to just like, I'm not one to be motivated to go to the gym and like work out with people in front of people. It's not my scene. So I ripped all the carpet out, laid down some rubber flooring, got all the stuff I needed. And it just makes it a lot easier now to go down there for even 20 minutes a day. And just kind of hit that a couple times a week pretty hard now.
Yeah, dude, crazy. I had no idea. Did you call it alien foot because it felt like there was an alien squeezing your foot that you couldn't see, like that kind of idea?
No, it looked like an alien foot. It felt like a giant was squeezing it for a long time. But it looked like it belonged to an alien. I have a whole album on my phone of just super disgusting foot pictures if you're into that kind of thing.
Gnarly.
Send you some.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Have you put those out much on social or anything?
No, not really. I put a couple up just like as a progress check because people would ask why I wasn't riding or something, and just kind of say, this is what my foot looks like. It doesn't look like it belongs to me. But just kind of try to deal with it on my own for the most part.
Yeah. All right. Well, since you're on the bike and you're ready to rip as much as you can be, like, let's talk about this year. Like, how long, when I texted like, hey, let's do podcasts, you're like, we're already out there digging and getting ready. How long do you guys have this year?
We're not out there yet. We're all just kind of practicing. There's so many different spots to ride out here. So we're not allowed at the venue yet. We start.
Okay. Gotcha.
Today's Friday. We start Tuesday. And I got some butterflies this morning. I pulled up the 14-day weather forecast, and now finals day is on there, which is kind of like, oh man, it's coming up really quick.
Yeah.
But we're out there for 10 days prior to finals, doing all the digging and practice and all that stuff.
Okay. And are you pretty familiar with the new zone?
I am, because we were supposed to have a new venue. Now that I live out here, and before I lived out here, Todd Barber would bring me out to help him with site scouts for new venues and all that stuff, just to get a rider's set of eyes on it. And I always think it's really important to look at a venue as a whole and not just selfishly, which is really hard because you want to pick a site that you know you'll do good at. But it's also really good to look at how the venue will look for our sport as a whole. And will it make the best show? Will there be enough lines for a lot of people? So we scouted this new venue. It was in a completely different zone. It's state land. And that's the issue here, is it has to be on state land, just because BLM has so many more restrictions to bush removal, dirt work, all that stuff. And we're running out of state land. And this was our last sliver left. And it was a pretty heinous venue, super steep. Would have been the most elevation we ever dropped. I think it was about 900 feet. So we're moving forward with that. And then they ran into some permitting issues just because it's in plain sight right off of a main highway, and parking and all that would have been an issue. So they pulled that out maybe about a month ago. And then after some back and forth with the riders, it was decided that we were going to go to the 2016, 2017 venue. So that's where we're going now. So a lot of us have ridden there before. Some of us haven't. There's 15 guys this year, a couple new ones, and a couple people who weren't riding Rampage then. So curious to see where everyone goes and what it'll all be like.
And I assume like anything that was kind of man-made in there, that had all been removed, right?
Yeah, when they decommission a site, they pull all the sandbags. That's just part of the agreement they have with the state of Utah to restore it to its natural look as best as possible.
Yep.
So they pulled all the sandbags, and now there's a crew of pre-builders who are out there. Just some of the key features off the top, they're rebuilding that stuff. So then we can take it from there, because off the top, when we first got to 2016, there was no way to make it from top to bottom. And they pre-built one side, rider's right, and it ended up being such a huge process that they didn't get to rider's left side, which is where I ended up going in 2016. And that was myself, Darren Bearclaw, Carson Storch, and Logan Bingley.
Okay, was that like the really skinny knife edge with like a white cliff in the middle off to the left? That venue?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So we called that drop the Goblin because it was like this weird grayish green knob, and we had to do essentially what the pre-build job was going to be. We were allowed 75 burlap sandbags per rider, and we pulled all our sandbags together and spent, I think, 3 days on it, building this huge landing wall just so we could connect from top to the bottom 3/4.
Crazy.
So this year they're actually out there right now redoing that one. I think I just follow all their Instagram stories, and they finished up Riders Right, and now they're on to that. So it looks like they'll finish just in time for when we get there on Tuesday.
Cool. Does, knowing that's in play, do you have kind of thoughts and plans of what you're going to do? Like what's your strategy?
Strategy
without giving it away
is ever changing. Since I've been off the bike for so long, and I kind of lose tricks if I'm not doing them all the time. And I knew I thought we were going to this new venue. My strategy was not to just spend my time on trick jumps, practicing tricks over and over. And it was just to ride a lot and ride well. And then once we found out that it wasn't there, and we're going back to an old venue, and every time we go back to an older venue, or if it's a second year at a venue, it's a little more trick oriented and a little more like big bike slope comp. So I kind of had to flip my strategy and start doing tricks again, which has actually been going pretty well. But I was kind of in my head about riding the same line again, because I rode it to my potential, I felt, in 2017, and was really proud of how I rode it. And it was one of the worst rankings I ever got at Rampage.
Really?
Just the way it goes sometimes with judged events. You never really know. But the thought of trying to ride the same line again and do stuff that I was scared of then again, just kind of had me up at night. And then I think I might take a completely different way, just start fresh.
Okay. I'm just trying to remember that line. Like the top, you could only just get through it, right? Like maybe you try and trick the Goblin somehow, but it was a pretty like short, harsh drop, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then the top to get down to the Goblin, they did pre-build a line down that was pretty steep, had a catch berm, kind of a double drop. And then Bear Claw and myself built a drop into that jumped over that super, super steep chute. If you remember Kyle and Cam and Pierre.
Yeah.
It was one of the scarier things I ever rode. And that, like it doesn't really translate, like most things to camera. But I remember digging one day, Darren said he was going to go practice. He's up at the top and I just hear him freaking out, like screaming. And I was like, what the heck? I look up and he's trying to get himself to hit this start thing. And I was kind of like, geez, look at Claw. Like, man, poor guy. He's having a hard time. Like, he's so in his head. Like, I hope he gets it. And didn't think I'd have a problem with it. Just completely naive. And I wasn't the one up there with my bike with my helmet on. Mm-hmm. Later that day, I went up with my bike and my helmet and did the same exact thing. Start swearing, like picturing myself just going off the next cliff, which is like a major, what we call a no fall zone. And it ended up being one of the scariest things we ever rode. It didn't really look that way, but it was right out of the gate to get to the Goblin.
Yeah, geez, dude, get me all stressed out. I'm not even there. Like, that's so nuts. Is okay. Like, kind of getting back to the trick thing. Like, do you think you sort of think it's going to be, sort of slope style influence this year with doing well?
I think so, for sure. Just with it being a venue we've already used and the way that the judging is going is kind of dictating how we're riding. And I have my opinions on what I think Rampage is and what it should be, but everybody does, But sure. To me, I think that big, like gnarly fast lines don't seem to get as rewarded as much as riding a fairly safe line and tricking the heck out of it. And to me, that's kind of what makes Rampage is the exposure, the size, the speed, all that stuff. But it is what it is. It's a competition. So you got to just adapt to it every year. And every year I'm trying to figure out the formula. But at the same time, I just try to do what I think is what I want to do and what's fun. And they can put me wherever they want and no complaints at the end of the day.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I know all the dudes that judge and stuff, but do you ever ask them specifically, or do you got, does everyone talk about it? Because it seems like it always comes back to Brendan's line a couple years ago. Like, before the event, everyone like, this is the coolest ever, and his score didn't reflect it, and there was all the backlash and stuff. And I mean, I wasn't out there to see what it was like, but I don't know. It seemed like the use of that boulder and kind of sketchy looking lines didn't pay off. So do you talk with the judges?
They get so much backlash, and
which, yeah, dude, I love every one of them, and I'm not critiquing them at all.
That's the thing. We're all such good friends with them. I just try to not get caught up in it. And I might be a little frustrated sometimes, but I'm not going to like lose a friendship over it or hold a grudge. And it's subjective. It's a judged event. It's how they all are. It's how they've always been. And I think the most important thing is to just focus on doing what you want to do. And if it scores well, sweet. But at least you're not trying to ride like a rider you're not, or trying to just fit the mold,
Mm-hmm.
But everyone has their different approach. Some people get really angry. Some people don't care. It's just different for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So kind of on this topic, when I interviewed Zink a couple years ago, we were talking about that shoot that like he did it, and did Pierre guinea pig it?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so it was Pierre straight. They rode that, and they rode it before, game day. And that was the move that seemed like hyped everyone up to no end. Just like, holy crap, they made it. They survived.
Yeah, for sure.
But then they do it on game day, and it seemed like some of the wow factor had been taken away, because it's like, oh, yeah, it's possible. Do you think about that? Like saving big moves for the actual event? Or do you want to get your stuff done and make sure it all works and not worry about risking a first time move and having it not work?
The things I save are usually the things that I'm really scared of and only want to do once, maybe twice in second run. I don't really think that way, but I have started to think more that way. Like maybe you wouldn't do your flip combo in practice and you just do the straight flip and feel it out and feel out the timing and like kind of visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it shouldn't reflect in your score, but I feel like it does. Like a big part of judging is the wow factor that you get. And if you've seen somebody do something, it doesn't have the same wow factor. And that's a big question this year because it's a site we've already used. Sorgi had that big flip that he won with. So would they score that lower this year? I mean, hypothetically, it's supposed to be judged against everybody else that day. So it shouldn't dock anything else. But also, Cam Zink filmed his part of his X Games Real MTB video there. He 360 that big drop that he crashed on in his run. Mm-hmm. So if he does that this year, will it get scored less? Ethan Nell flipped onto his lily pad, which is a pretty heinous on-off, super blind thing. He did that for the Accomplice movie. So if he's planning on doing that again, will it get judged as if no one had ever seen it? You kind of never know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's the good and the bad of a judged event, I guess. Never know what's going to happen.
That's why racing's sweet, man. The clock doesn't lie. It's not opinionated.
It's true. Yeah. We'll go into bike setup later. Is anyone going to ride a single crown out there? Like if tricks are around, like start talking whips and bar spins and stuff with the big old forks they have now. Do you think anyone's going to do that?
It's possible. I don't know. I can't think of anybody that I've heard of that's thinking of trying it.
Yeah.
I love downhill bikes, so I'll be on a full downhill bike. And It definitely just feels like I've messed around with freeride bikes with single crowns, and it's just so much more stable to have the dual crown when stuff's that big. Yeah. But yeah, somebody could start. That could come into play because we might be at the point where we have to start recycling venues, which might change the direction of the sport a little bit, unfortunately. And I was looking at this new venue as what I would call the last year, maybe 2 years, if we use the venue of like true big mountain raw stuff. But it's out of our hands. It's just the land that we have. And not to say those are bad venues. It's just, it changes when the infrastructure is already there. The bench cuts are there. The landings are there. Things just get built up wider and safer. And so that kind of changes the riding to an extent.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's get into bikes a little bit, talk about suspension, like tire choice and pressures and all that. And one thing I want to, get your input on is I talked to Fitzy a couple years ago. We podcasted, and I think he said something to the effect of that fast rebound is not a reason why a Rampage rider would get bucked on a gnarly landing. He's just saying the forces are so much bigger that it's not the rebound. Like it's the whole bike and body collapsing and kind of springing back. And so curious what you think about that. And yeah, like tell us about your bike. I know you did that rad build video and, you max out the spacers, but yeah, go into some detail.
Yeah, what Fitzy said is true for sure. And that's something I learned. And I've never been one to nerd out on bike setup too much. I think you can definitely get in your head too much worrying about how many clicks you're doing and how it feels different. And then you're not actually riding as good because you're just in your head if your bike's 2 clicks off or whatever. But I was actually explaining to a kid I was riding with today, he had his fork like mega slow and he was saying it so he didn't get bounced. But at Rampage 2018, I learned why that's not true, that, slow rebound will keep you from getting bucked. There was this thing that I ended up crashing on in my first run, but in practice, I crashed worse on it. It was kind of a plumb drop to kind of a flattish landing that had a roll. So you kind of unweight, and then it got super steep and you had to catch a bench cut to the right into a berm. And I landed right where I wanted. I hate those slow, creepy drops that you kind of have to pull both wheels and not clip your rear wheel because the landing's right underneath it. And gross. I landed and my rear wheel came off the ground, so I couldn't slow down and just had to lean into the cliff, like into the hillside to shut it down to not go off the next cliff. And that was the morning of finals. It was my first time hitting that. It was a big connector to the bottom half of my line. And I went to the guys at Marzocchi Fox and kind of told them what was going on. They felt my suspension and they said they were going to speed up the high speed rebound. And high speed, low speed has always completely perplexed me. I'd get super confused. That's why I like Marzocchi, because there's just compression and rebound. And
Yeah.
for 99% of things, that's all everybody needs. This
sure.
was kind of the only time I needed to make tweaks to that. And they described to me how when I landed, my rebound was so slow that instead of the shock rebounding, the whole bike packs up because the shock's packed down. So the rear wheel lifts off the ground instead of the rear wheel staying glued and like the suspension coming up. So they did a couple clicks. I went up and hit it. My rear wheel stayed glued. My suspension felt faster than I would have normally run it, but it worked. So there's a happy medium there for sure. And that's something we're always clicking around when we're doing Kong laps and trying to figure out. Basically, when you get it to where it feels like you land a big drop and your wheels stay glued to the ground, you're good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Are you mullet or are you dual 27.5? I forget.
I am mullet. I'm running kind of a weird setup that I just kind of Frankenstein my own, but I have a 27.5 front, 26 rear. If I were taller, I'd run 27.5 front and rear. I'm just got these little legs that I've been blessed with. And I buzz my butt on the tire off those slow, like crawly drops and for flip step downs and stuff. You got to get pretty far over the back wheel, and it's just my nightmare to hit my butt on the tire, taking off of a flip step down.
26 ain't dead then.
No, far from it, man. It's going to make a comeback with all these pump tracks and stuff too.
Heck yeah.
It's good stuff.
How do you run your tires? Are you running like downhill casing or lighter casing, but tons of pressure? Like, what do you do there? Do you have inserts or anything like that?
No, I actually got a front flat the other day and didn't realize I had an insert in there the whole time. I'm like pretty bad to ask about tire setup and stuff because if it feels good, I have no idea what pressure I run. I just run what seems to be working.
Okay.
But yeah, inserts, I'm not a fan. They're just so hard to get on.
Sure.
I lose my mind trying to get my tires on and I kind of still get flats with them. So hopefully there's, it works for some people. Great. That's sweet. I just run downhill tires. I always try to remember what my pressure is every year in the tires. And then Justin Olson was in my garage a while ago and picked up one of my Rampage number plates and looked at the back, and I had all of my suspension and tire settings written on it. And
dude, that's sick.
I had completely forgotten. And every year I try to refigure it out. And then I looked at the back of my number plates and it's on every single one of them. And I was like, oh man, would have been good to know. So I've gotten a little more calculated with it, but still just kind of, if it's feeling good, that's what I do.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, that's awesome. How, like, is your daily driver in your trail bike, do you set that up like how you should? You don't try to run like a stiff bike so you're used to that kind of thing?
I usually have a bike park set up and like Virgin set up. Okay. Because it's just so different out here, and riding a Rampage setup at a bike park is not the most fun. So I usually go softer and a little bit faster and let some air out of the tires for bike park. Okay.
But still kind of big hit for you?
Yeah, still like stiffer than I should for my weight probably, but yeah, just kind of like in the middle probably.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you don't seem like you get stressed out or nervous on competition day. I mean, you said you were just on that drop, like you had the same experience Claude did. So, but you just seem super cool, like just kind of icy, like, yeah, this is what I'm here to do. And here I go. Like, are you stressed out? I know you said you saw the 14-day window and, it's starting to hit home, but what's game day like for you?
I think the unique thing about Rampage is we have those full 10 days to like prep for it. So it's not like some of the European slopestyle contests we used to go to. You show up all jet lagged, have a day of practice. It gets windy, rainy, and then you got the finals the next day and you're like super stressed because you're not dialed in. But we pick out what we want to do on day one, and then we have 9 days to dig it, stand on it. I usually stand on my big drops before I go home every single evening after digging to just kind of picture it. And it's usually quite a bit of anxiety leading up, and you're obviously scared the first time. And then after you hit it, hit a couple things, it just gets better and better. And then ideally by game day, you have everything figured out. Like last time I did everything I wanted to do except for flipping this one step down. So I was sweating that pretty good. And it's a lot easier to get yourself to do something mid-run than it is when it's just practice and you're not on a timeline and you're starting right above it and you're wondering if it's windy and all that stuff. But once you drop in, you're just kind of tunnel visioned on what you have to do. So I think that helps, is just knowing that you have those days to prep, and then when it's time, and you just do what you've been kind of wrapping your head around for 10 days.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, I know you've worked your way up, but that stuff is so gnarly to me. Okay. And we, whenever that was, like 03 maybe, like I let you guys take that video camera and you filmed, you're filming zinc and you can hear your voice like, whoa, this is crazy. What are we talking about? Did you ever think you would be into this style of riding? Because, it was so dirt jumpy back then, and this was an outlier. And you race. Like, I want to talk about race career and stuff, but like, did you ever think that, Rampage and like the serious level of free riding would be what you're known for?
No, I've told this story a lot lately after moving here, but at that first Rampage, I think I was 13 or 14, came to watch Cam do it, and he had a huge crash and watched just everybody around me crashing, and I thought it was the stupidest thing ever. And I was, I'd always like pretty vocal little kid about what I thought was cool and what I didn't. And I thought Rampage was stupid. I thought it was just a huck fest. I hated the desert. Didn't have any plans of doing it, and then kind of started thinking about it in 2008. That was back when I was racing. I raced juniors, spent a lot of time on the downhill bike. Then that was my first year elite, and just felt better on the downhill bike. Kind of thought about it, but didn't think I was ready. And then a lot of my close friends just kind of told me they think I would do good and I should just give it a shot. So then 2010 was my first Rampage, and was super scared. And Alex Pro actually broke me in. He saw me one of the practice days just kind of looking around, like completely out of my element. And he said, get your helmet, get your bike, follow me. It took me up to this ridge and just said, do what I do, and took me off this super big drop. It was far riders left. It was known as the G triple drop because G hit it the year before. And I didn't even know what it was. I didn't look at it. Alex just took me off of it blind, which was like,
dang, dude,
the worst, best thing he could have done for me ever.
Yeah.
Because if I looked at it, I would have been scared of it. And it went great. And then he told me into a couple other things. And then I was off and running and just like got completely hooked. Loved it. And then we didn't have Rampage in 2011. And it was all I was thinking about while competing, racing, everything is I just wanted to get back at Rampage. And then they did it again in 2012 and I'd done it since then. But yeah, it was kind of a weird chain of events of thinking I would never do it, never wanting to do it, and then just becoming completely obsessed with it.
Had you ridden there much before that year?
No, zero.
Like, so some of your first runs were Alex towing you down there.
Yeah, and I didn't come out early and ride King Kong or anything. It was just kind of straight to the venue.
Dang, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was. That was when they did Interbike in Vegas, and I had just turned 21 and did the whole Vegas thing, which I never need to do again, and then just showed up to Rampage completely unprepared and had no idea what I was getting myself into. But then I realized, years prior, it's good to come out and ride the terrain and get comfy with it first.
Yeah. Crazy. Sorry, I meant to ask you this a little bit before, like when we were talking about judging and all that stuff, but, without getting too personal about salaries and sponsorships and all that stuff, but unless you're first place, do the other positions matter all that much? Like, is it a big deal to say, hey, I was 4th at Rampage versus 8th? Is it just the fact that you're there? Does it impact much for you?
I think it's one of the few things that like a top 10 or top 5 especially actually kind of does matter, more than like a slope comp.
Mhm.
I was just kind of in the cycle of doing the FMB thing and getting sixth, seventh, eighth. Like I think I had a fourth in a Crankworks, and it doesn't matter unless you're first, second, maybe third. Um, but I think more people watch Rampage, and more people just have respect for what it is and the people that are riding it. So I do it because I like it, but it's definitely a big part of my career and things that my sponsors like me to do. They would never push me to do it. And when I think I'm not wanting to do it anymore, I have no problem walking away from it. I'd never do it just to maintain sponsorships and stuff like that. But yeah, I think sponsors see a lot of value in it, and I do as well. But I also just do it because I love it.
Yeah. So, when we talked the other day, you joked about the riders being the puppets out there, and you joked about it, but was there any truth to what you were saying?
I don't remember what the conversation was, but it's just become such a huge ordeal now. Like, it's hard to explain, but after Rampage 2019, we're pretty tunnel visioned on what we're doing and don't really stop and look around that much. It's just like that's kind of how in your head you're just thinking about what you have to do and not really looking left or right, just looking forward. And we finished the event. It went well. They were doing the after party in Springdale. We were just so roached from the whole 10 days, my friends and I that helped me out, that we decided to just order Domino's, crack some beers, sit on the couch, and watch the webcast replay.
No.
And we were all tripping on like how many people were there. They had like a skydiver and all this crazy circus stuff, and like we didn't even really notice any of that was going on, just because we were so focused on what we had to do. But it's a big show now. It has a lot of eyes on it. It's just kind of grown into this huge beast, and it's a great platform for our sport for sure. But yeah, it's not like it was before. It was a little more cowboy back in the day.
Yeah, for sure. Are there any things you would want to change about how it works? I think it's rad that Todd brings you out and you guys scope sites and he knows how involved you're in there. But so I assume you talk about stuff, but is, there anything, if you had your dream, could be changed?
I think we've gotten it to a great place. It got to the point where we were kind of being told when to drop. If it was there were schedule changes being made without us being made aware. Some bad injuries and stuff took place in part to last minute schedule changes, and they've really started to incorporate us more into those decisions, which is really good. And I think it's at a good place right now. I hope it stays that way. It's like at this kind of event, we can't just be the circus monkeys because there's super big consequences that could happen if we're forced to ride when it's windy or something like that, or if a practice day gets taken away to move the event forward because there's weather coming in. So those decisions now involve the riders. And this year there was some drama over the site that ended up being chosen, but it was so last minute they had to make a decision and they had to pick what they thought was best for the event. And some people, might just not like their line at that venue and be mad about it or what. But it was so last minute they just kind of had to pull the trigger and make something happen. But yeah, I think we're at a really good place now. We could talk on October 16th and see how it goes, but I think it should go pretty smoothly.
Cool. Who's on your crew?
I have Tom Gelly, who used to be the GT demo truck driver.
Okay.
He's one of the hardest working guys I've ever met. He came in 2013 to help me work on my bike, and I can't remember if I lost a dig member or what, but I was down one. He said he would dig, and I never spent time with him, didn't know if he was a hard worker. And he said he thinks it's going to be like a vacation. And I was like, oh man, this is not going to be fun, bud. You're going to be digging till your hands bleed. You're not going to be sleeping. And he's like, I got it. I just don't want to ask or answer questions from consumers about derailleurs and stuff. Like, this is going to be fun. And he crushes it. He used to be a rock mason, done a bunch of stuff.
Whoa.
Super hard worker. You tell him a rock needs to go, he'll just chip at it for 2 days straight. And then Alex Ravelis dug for me a lot of years in a row. He's one of my best friends. You know him well from back home.
Heck
and he is like my secret weapon for speed checks. And he knows the way that I pop off of drops, and he helps me eye up speed, and just a good dude to have around. Killer digger. He just hasn't been digging as much these days. He's been into woodworking, and he wasn't really feeling digging this year, but he really wanted to come, and I need him there just because he's a great friend to have around for good vibes and speed checks and all that. And we are allowed a media guy. So Alex is my media guy.
Oh, sick.
So he's kind of my secret weapon, and he'll just kind of be there to help out. And I'm going to give him my little camera with a little shallow depth of field lens, and he can get pretty artsy with that. But mainly just to have another friend on the crew. He's not allowed to dig. But he'll be there. And then, do you remember Hyde from?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Ripper. He used to ride hardtails a bunch at post office. Still rides trail bikes a bunch. He works for Mountain Bikers of Santa Cruz Trail Building.
Oh, sweet.
Has like some of the sickest dirt jump trails in his backyard. Good dude, good builder. So we got a good crew this year.
Oh, that's rad. That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who, talking about some of the newer riders, like you mentioned Jackson, and like, what's the next generation looking like? Who's going to be the sleepers out there?
It's ever changing, but Jackson, I'm super hyped on. He is just like so indulged in freeride. And the first time I met him, he's a man of few words. He's getting a little more outspoken, but the first time I met him, I just had talked to him on Instagram because I saw what he was doing and thought he was crushing it. And I came out here before I lived here to do some riding. We met up at the coffee shop and took him out. And the only words that came out of his mouth were free ride. I like asked him what he grew up doing. Free ride. I'm like, did you race or anything? He's like, nope, free ride. I'm like, did you ride dirt bikes? And he's like, yeah. It's like, did you race? He's like, nope, free ride. Talks about all the videos he used to watch. They're all free ride. He knows all the old New World disorders and all that stuff, which a lot of kids these days have never seen any of those videos, which is crazy. Yeah. But he's just bringing like kind of, in a sense, an old school approach to a new school rider. And he's the whole package. He's got everything, and he does stuff that's super unique. He doesn't just follow the mold of what's trendy or what's in right now. And definitely looking forward to seeing him ride this year and see how he does. But that's going to be awesome. And then Braga, huge fan of him. I hadn't met him yet, talked to him a little bit online, but his first day out here was yesterday. And
cool.
I love his approach. I love the way he rides. He rides big and fast. He's not super trick heavy. And I'm happy that there's more of that in Rampage. I miss having guys like G, who had the invite in 2019, and then I think he got hurt right before. But I was really looking forward to having him there again. I like that kind of approach, like the downhill racer mindset, get from the top to the bottom as quick as possible with a lot of big stuff in between. And I think that's what Braga's going to do this year, which is really cool.
Dude, he's so beast.
Yeah.
Like, obviously his video parts, but watching him at Hardline, like, dude.
Yeah.
that track was just like trembling as he came down. He's so gnarly. It'll be sick to see him out there.
It took him on his first Kong lap yesterday. And usually you get to the top of Kong and like people are asking questions, and sometimes you stop at each drop, show him where you go. And he kind of asked what it's like. And I was like, just follow me. You'll be good. And he just followed me down blind, was right there at the bottom. It was just like freaking out, saying it was so fun and so sick.
No way.
Crazy how much exposure there is, because he hasn't really ridden ridges in Utah like that.
Yeah.
But it was just cool. I just knew that he could just drop in and figure it out,
Oh my goodness.
That's just how dialed he is on his bike and how he's not scared,
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that's rad. Yeah, it'll be fun to see him for sure.
Yeah.
Is he sunburned yet? Worry about the sun exposure.
Yeah, that might happen for sure. I was thinking I didn't know if he was going to get in this year, and I was thinking of asking if he wanted to come out and be one of my builders. But then I didn't, because I didn't know if he was going to get in, and luckily he did. But I was also wondering, like, how's he going to do in the heat? A little different environment for him, but I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, totally. Sweet. All right, what's up with you and vlogging? I hear you love it.
Hey, vlogging's cool, man. If you want to vlog, vlog. I don't want to vlog, so I'm not going to vlog. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm a bit of an introvert, honestly. Like, when I can be at events and stuff. You're kind of forced to be an extrovert, but I'm just, Cam and I are pretty different in that sense. He was made for vlogging. I love watching his vlogs. I think they're hilarious. And sometimes sponsors want me to do it because they see my brother doing it and say, you should just do that too. You guys are like the same person. But I think it comes off pretty apparent when someone's forcing vlogging. And it's just not for me. I just don't. I think it changes the day when you're having a session with your friends and there's a camera there. Yep. Conversations are different. People act different. And I don't want to put that on my friends. I think it's fun to just hang out and be in the moment and just live your life that way. But everybody's different. Some people like to have everything documented.
Cool. I like that answer. I don't remember when I first heard you in the commentary booth, but I think it was a Crankworks for sure. But dude, you're really, really good as a commentator. Like you're fluid. Clearly you're knowledgeable, but is that something you think about? Did you practice or does it just work out? Like I was blown away at how well you were.
I appreciate that. And announcing is a tough thing for me. I kind of got thrown right into it, which was a great opportunity. TJ from Boombox is one of the coolest dudes ever. And he asked if I was going to Rotorua. He knew I wasn't doing slopestyle anymore and asked if I wanted to announce. And I kind of figured we'd do like a practice or something. But I just got thrown straight into the webcast and was super nervous about it. I just don't like talking that much as Cam does. And he was built for it. He does every single event at Crankworks now. He's the host. And I wish they would do a behind the scenes. I think they really should, of what he has in his ears, because we have headphones on. Yeah. The producers and stuff are talking to us, and it's insane how much Cam can juggle with receiving stuff in his ears, being told what's coming up, how many seconds he has to talk, and he's just talking fluently, like he doesn't hear it even. Mm-hmm. And so that just completely blew me away. And I think the first time I started talking, and then TJ, the producer, was giving us feedback, or sometimes he holds the wrong button down and he's trying to tell camera 2 to pan, and he, tensions get high, and you're talking and you think it's you screwing up, and it's just pretty overwhelming. But yeah, I always, if I'm announcing, I want to announce something that I'm passionate about and something I feel like I'm knowledgeable about. Mm-hmm. I find pump track hard to announce. I'm not the most passionate about it. Yeah. And, I might not know every athlete, but if I know the tricks, I know the sport, I know the riders, it's a lot easier to just talk and not try to sound like I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But then after the webcast, I'm pretty burnt out and just completely exhausted. And Cam's wanting to go downtown, go get beers, go hang out, go do this. And I'm dude, I'm going to the grocery store, getting a frozen pizza and a 6-pack and going to my room and just listening to music and not talking. But it's fun. I do enjoy doing it. I get pretty anxious before. It's a lot of pressure and a lot of talking. And if you say anything wrong, Pink Bike will pick it up. That's for sure.
Oh man, they go off, don't they?
Oh yeah. It's kind of a thankless job. It's
for
do
sure.
Everything right, you never hear anything, but you do something wrong, it's all over.
Yeah, definitely. No, I thought you did a great job. And, I'm probably thinking mostly of slopestyle because, you're picking out everyone's, oh, that was opposite, this was regular, that was switch, just all the little nuances where you had them on lock. And then, your brother is kind of just the more excited, not that you're not excited, I'm not saying that wrong, but he's the color commentator, the balance of you two was really, really good. And I was stoked to hear how awesome it was coming from you. So
cool. I appreciate it. I hope to do more. It's just been kind of a weird year. I haven't made it to the Crankworks and couldn't go to BC because I'm just here focusing for Rampage, but would like to do more for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we'll start wrapping up a little bit, but dude, the dirt cover that Highland shot at Pacifica, it's still one of the dopest things ever. I want to know the story behind that. Did you know that was coming out? It seemed like that was kind of around the time that Cam did the freeride challenge and all that. He kind of came out, hit the scene at the same time. Did that cover do anything for your career?
A little bit. Yeah, it was crazy. I Cam got invited to go out to Pacifica to do a shoot with Ian Highlands. I think it was for Fox, or maybe they were just shooting. And my dad is super awesome and would just kind of, when he had time off work, he's a retired fire captain now. He worked a lot, but whenever he had time off work, he'd take us to races or wherever we needed to go. And I was just kind of tagging along and riding the jump with Cam and didn't think anything would come of it. And then I was sleeping in one morning. I think I was 13 at the time. And Cam came running into the door, freaking out. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And that's when like you would preview what a magazine would look like on their website before it came out and came in the mail. And like the stuff on the internet was super slim, not much on there. And it showed the cover of the July issue or whatever. And it was one of Ian's pictures of myself on there. Which like,
and it said like moto next to it, right?
Yeah. And we thought it was,
you're just all whipped out.
I thought it was fake. I was just like confused, like what, why the heck did they do that? So no, that was just super cool. Didn't expect it for sure.
Yeah. Dude, that's one of the sickest ones. I thought it was really cool.
That's rad. It looked like it was to scale too. I was on that small scuba yellow Santa Cruz Bullet with a bunch of like mismatched parts that I would win in raffles at local California downhill races. So I had yellow frame, red Boxer 151, which I saved up for a super long time to buy. And then I had blue Tytech Hellbent handlebars that I got in a raffle, and then a cheetah print SDG seat. I had some pink cranks, and maybe just like the craziest colors. I would just, whatever I got, I'd throw on there. I wish I still had that bike, but I had 24-inch double wide rims with 3-inch Gazzalotti tires. And that bike was like 45 pounds and I was probably 90.
Oh my goodness, it was that heavy?
Yeah, but the picture looked like it was to scale because I was so small and the bike with the 24-inch wheels was so small that you couldn't really tell, which was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I haven't grown much since then, but
come on.
Still waiting for that growth spurt.
Yeah, it'll come someday.
Yeah, I believe.
All right. I think I pitched it to you a few years ago, but dude, do you want to go full kook flog and do 1,000 feet of mountain bike drops in a day? Do you want to do that concept? Do you remember me pitching it to you?
I don't remember this, but it sounds awesome.
Dude, that's your YouTube hook. You've got your thumbnail. You have drops, how to drop your bike. Like that seems to be really big.
That's cool.
You just find a drop that you can shuttle with like a side-by-side or something. And if it's like 20 feet or 30 feet, and you just lap it so you can get like 1,000 vertical feet of dropping in a day.
That would be rad.
That'll blow your vlog up.
Yeah. I've been talking about since I moved here, I wanted to get to the point, like, I guess fitness wise, but to do 10K days of hiking and descending, because we have all these old rampage sites that we ride fairly often, and they're kind of brutal to hike up, but you can find different ways down every time, and it's super fun. And I think it'd be really fun to get there at sunrise one day. And the 2008 to 2013 venue and the 2014, 2015 venue are the same peak. One drops east, one drops west.
Yeah.
So you could park at the bottom of one, climb up, descend the other, climb back up, descend back to your truck. And I just think it'd be cool to try to see how much you can do in one day. I think that peak is probably 500 feet elevation. So it'd be like 20 top to bottoms, which would be a ton.
Oh my goodness.
And it might be a lofty goal, but I think it'd be pretty fun. Dude,
that would be sick. Dude,
gotta do it now because I said it.
All right. Yeah. It's just rough that the most daylight's in the summertime, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And it would be impossible.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, dude, I really appreciate you being on. Is anything you want to talk about? Things anything on your mind that want to get out there? Or
not we can just that I can think of. I'm sure we could tell old stories for days.
I know, right?
But yeah, anything else you got, I'm good to answer. If not, wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, we hit racing a little bit, but you race World Cups, right?
Yeah, for a little bit. I raced juniors pretty heavily. I wasn't too into the trick stuff back then. I just wasn't into it. I really liked riding trails and trying to go fast. And we had a lot of good downhill trails in Santa Cruz, and raced juniors, raced junior worlds. And then when I went to elite, it kind of around the same time, like a lot of our downhill trails got torn down, and I was riding jumps more and got more into tricks. And then it just kind of changed direction, but I'm grateful to have grown up racing. I miss it. I don't have the same speed I used to, I don't think. But it gave me a good basis just for bike handling and stuff like that. And I'm definitely glad I took that path in the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, what do you think about slope style right now? Because it's ridiculous what they're doing, but
Yeah.
it's kind of borderline like gymnastics mode, not to be insulting, but just the, all right, you have to add another half spin or whatever here. Like, it's so crazy what they're doing.
No, I fully agree. And I think gymnastics is kind of like, as sports progress, they turn more to an Olympic gymnastic type thing. I think it's inevitable. And that's like the progression of most sports. They start out a little rough around the edges and then they get so refined, and kids grow up watching what the elders did and ways to improve it and study from that. And they just keep getting better and better and training differently and harder. And it just is bound to happen. And where it's gotten to now is crazy. We say it all the time, but we would never think that it would get to the point that you'd see people doing, like 360 downside double tail ups off cannon logs and stuff, like unfathomable things. And Emil, when I'm announcing, he makes it really tough because I can't keep
Dude.
up with how fast he does his tricks. It's like a huge tongue twister.
Yeah.
But I have no business being in that element anymore. And I'm just happy to be able to bring some insight and announce it. But it's definitely different than I thought it would ever be, for sure. I do wish that there was a little more options. I think it would keep it more exciting when the course has options like it used to. But that could just be, reminiscing on the old days. But before I even did slopestyle, I always loved watching like Monster Park and even at Joyride and stuff like that, where you'd have Vanderham show up on a downhill bike and stay Paul Bass on a hardtail, and either one of them could win, just with line choice and technicality and stuff like that. I think that was pretty exciting. It was harder to judge and a little more confusing for the audience. It's a little more cut and dry now. Same jump, you do a better trick, you're going to do better. But I hope it comes full circle and a little bit more of that kind of stuff gets implemented into it now. And I think that would be pretty cool for it to keep it fresh and exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Those were the days. It was so weird, huh?
It was super weird.
A giant wall ride in the middle of the trees for Vanderham. And then, some technical jumps.
It was an awkward stage, but I still think it was sweet.
Yeah. It was super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Claw kind of being the one that says like, oh, I'll do the slopestyle stuff with these giant moves when he threed that road gap thing at Crankworks or Joyride, I guess, whatever it was a long time ago. Like, yeah, he's the one that started blending it all together, didn't he?
For sure. All those guys like Claw, Zink, Kyle, Paul, my brother, it seemed like such a fun time when they were competing because they were kind of leading it, and they'd all go all over the world to these contests with good prize money, and they'd all just kind of like switch off winning. And I think they had a great time doing that back then. Yeah,
for sure. Are you talking to those guys about, what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, like lines and all that jazz?
A little bit. Yeah. It seems like most people are going to kind of stick to their same lines. I want to start fresh. And I got an eye up. I haven't stood on it in a while, but Connor McFarlane, I'm a big fan of him. He was out here twice and just had bad luck and some bad crashes that took him out. But he had a line that really excited me. It had a really big drop that is pretty gnarly, but I think it looks pretty good. And his line excites me. And I actually reached out to him just before we get out there to see if he would mind if I kind of sweep it off and rebuild it. And I just felt like that was the right thing to do. It kind of sucks to see somebody ride something that you worked so hard on. So I wanted to run it by him, and he said he would be stoked to see it get ridden. So that's going to be the first thing I check out. And I think I might go that way, but we'll see when we get there on Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah. Dude, that's cool. You reached out. I guess you'll have to see when you get out there this week, but are the riders able to kind of work together and figure all that stuff out? Like there's drama, a handful of times with crisscrossing or using each other's lines and stuff, but does it seem like that stuff sort of sorted itself out?
Yeah. I mean, you never know. Tensions are always super high. Sometimes people are super territorial over things. am curious to see how it's going to be this year with like, riders know which lines got scored well. So will people just go to Sorgi's winning line and try to team up with him on that? And will Sorgi allow it or Brandon or something like that? But that's kind of just on a case by case basis. Everybody treats it differently. Some people are super cool with that as long as you help put in work and get your crew on it and help fill sandbags and tune it up. It usually goes pretty well, or some people just won't allow it no matter what.
Okay. Man, dude, I'm getting nervous now. Yeah. every year I can't wait for it. And then I don't want it to happen.
Yeah. I've gone back and forth, but I'm back on the bike now. And the last couple of weeks, the weather's been good and I've been able to make up for lost time. And I'm at a point now to where I'm just not really putting high expectations on myself. And I'm just happy to be back in the event and see how it goes.
Dude, awesome. So rad. Can't wait to see you shred.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude, thanks for being on. Really appreciate it. And it's good to catch up a little bit. And I was blown away to hear that you'd only been on one other podcast. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Dropping the ball. So yeah,
well, glad to make it happen. We've been talking about it for a while.
Yeah. So cool. Thanks, man.
Right on. Good catching up.
Yeah, you too. And good luck out there.
Thanks, dude.